All right, a direct application of balance and stability leads into NBA flopping, and there's actually studies being done on flopping currently.
Is it a foul? Is it a flop? These are big issues in professional basketball. How do you tell if a player is responding naturally or is faking it? This is the Locomotor Performance Laboratory, part of SMU's Annette Caldwell Simmons School of Education and Human Development. Researchers in this lab use high-tech instruments to study the scientific basis of human performance and now the biomechanics of basketball.
So our flopping project investigated three questions. The first question is, how much force in a collision does it take to cause a legitimate loss of balance? The second question is, are the forces in typical basketball collisions above that minimum threshold? And the third question is whether or not we can tell from a player's response to a collision whether his motion is real or contrived in a way to get the referee to call a foul, in other words, a flop.
All right, so let's just review the three research questions. Dr. Whalen just described them. How much force to cause a legitimate loss of balance? Are the forces in a typical basketball collision above that minimum threshold? And can we tell from a player's response whether the motion is real or fake? And I will put all the link to an article and to the video in the description of this video. So how much force and impulse does it take to knock a player off balance? It depends on their height, weight, body position, and then they use Newton's laws of motion, which we reviewed, F equals ma, which goes into impulse and momentum, impulse, force times time, momentum, mass times velocity. And we can see this impulse and momentum in the angular world, which is angular impulse, which is torque times time, and angular momentum, which is moment of inertia times angular velocity. So the results to their question one, and again, I invite you to look at the video, it's fabulous. A small force or impulse to knock someone off balance is on the order of 20 to 100 Newton seconds, pretty small, especially if their base of support is small. Question two, what forces and impulses actually occur in basketball collisions? So they use motion capture, similar to our Vicon in PE 152. And the collisions in typical basketball motions did exceed the threshold. They were greater than 100 Newton seconds. And also they had to make sure that the person was stationary, and they determined that a person could get stationary within 0.25 to a half a second. And then their finding was that any basketball type collision is sufficient to cause a loss of balance. And then three, is that reaction of a player real or fake? They use the conservation of momentum. So mass times velocity equals mass times velocity after the collision. They measured many reactions, and they determined that the natural motion is arms come forward and then reach back to brace for a fall, right? We've probably all experienced that. Unnatural is when the arms rise above the body, which we've all seen watching the NBA. So, three responses to contact in the NBA. Step response, step back after a collision. That's a normal response. Fall, you can fall down since you cannot step back or intentionally keep your feet planted. And then there's the unnatural motion, which adds this excessive arm upward motion. So they determined the criteria to assess if somebody was flopping, and this kind of goes in a counterclockwise way. The body and feet have to be stationary. There has to be actual contact that occurred. The response timing is appropriate, and arm motion is not excessively upward. And if you can assess these criteria in a replay, then you can determine if it was flopping, yes or no. So again, review the video and the article, and I will see you in class.